Hello, I am Rajeshri Nayak from the Media and Public Relations Committee of IIM Raipur. We are honored to have with us Shri Jitender Panihar, Chief Human Resources Officer at Fitelo. So, we are happy to welcome you at IIM Raipur's
8th HR Summit.
So we'll directly start with the questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So, sir, what motivated you to transition into HR? Like, and how has your experience, shaped your leadership style? If you could please share with us.
So my interest with HR, was born out of serendipity. Uh, I think I knew what I do not want to do, and I guess that's where I stumbled upon HR. But I think one of the parts of my personality is always about doing the best with whatever I choose to. And if I've completed close to about 17 years in the field of HR, I can say, while also pursuing consulting, strategy, operations for some bit of time as well. So I started with consulting, did about a decade of consulting, working with multinationals, big corporates, family-owned business houses, and that's something which gave me a good amount of perspective in not just HR, but also what happens beyond HR. So I was always very, very inclined towards and focused on more than HR than HR. So consulting kind of shaped my vision accordingly, and it aided a lot to my leadership style and to my personality. Uh, I decided to move to the startup ecosystem about 10 years back. So I've now completed close to about a decade in startups, which I believe, is some bit of an achievement, considering how startups are and how the environment behaves. But I think overall, if I look back, uh, I mean, my consulting career shaped a lot by virtue of the sheer exposure. Uh, my HR upbringing back in institute uh, also gave me another perspective towards looking at agile practices, leveraging big picture perspective from consulting times, trying and doing something new, being experimental and enterprising at the same time. So I think all in all, if I look at my leadership style, it's a very, very simple leadership style that I have. uh, I just want to create value,
Right.
not just add value, but create value as an HR professional, and now more than HR professional.
I'm sure that your story will be resonating with a lot of our students, and as you have already interacted with us, so it has been very, nice to hear from you and hear about you. So, sir, what strategies have you, employed to scale talent management in a, growing startup environment like in Fitelo? If you could share.
So I think not just Fitelo, but if you look at the past two startups that I've been part of, uh, all of them, were at a stage, of growth.
Yes.
So if you take an example of Health Card or Moengage,
Yes.
for that matter, we were organizations who wanted to scale up, and we also wanted to scale up pretty fast, while ensuring that we invest and focus a lot on uh, building a sustainable culture, right? And one of the important mandate was culture building, while you grow. So at Health Card, we grew from about 150 people to about 1,000. At Moengage, we grew from about 30 engineers to about 500 across five international geographies. And same goes for Fitelo, wherein we grew from about 100 people to 1,200 across 25 plus cities, speaking 15 different languages. So all in all, if you look at the kind of strategies that we deploy, I like to keep it very simple, right? You first have to identify, where you stand at. which is the current as is. Whenever you walk into any new organization or walk into any project or walk into any context. Second is all about identifying where you want to be, which is the difficult part, especially in a startup.
Right.
But I guess that's where HR plays an important role, and people like me who come into picture, because we have to create clarity out of ambiguity, right? So we identify where we want to be and keep a track of what do we continue. Culture had been one area which we always wanted to stick to, because at scale there are a lot of things that starts breaking, uh, right? Be it employee engagement, be it culture, be it processes, uh, be it sentiments, morale, etc., etc. So I think all in all, you have to look at everything in totality, and especially in a startup when you scale, because the speed of change is very fast.
Absolutely.
You do not have time to sit back, think, and do one step at a time. You have to do 5 steps at a time, and then you also have to figure out how those 5 steps talk to each other. And if one breaks, how do come with a backup option and start weaving that option for the rest 5 options. So I think it is all about being very agile as an organization, being I would say uh, being clear with your perspective and your vision around processes and system, and you look at it from a integrated perspective. That's the biggest strategy. Don't look at things in isolation. Don't look at talent acquisition and then solve learning problem a little later, and then solve engagement problem a little later. You have to look at everything in totality and everything at one go, and that's where agility comes into picture.
Like, I'm sure that working in a startup is anyway very difficult, because you don't know what the problem is and what the solution you're going to come up with. And especially in the time that you're building a team that you were talking about, that I think was incredible, the growth that
Yeah.
you guys have shown. So sir, can you please tell me, like, what role do you see HR playing in fostering innovation within the organization? What according to you?
So I think before answering this question and sharing my view on that HR should play this role, there is a myth that I want to break.
Absolutely.
And the biggest myth is we can't have HR do everything. So I do not want to kind of place accountability or ownership on HR itself. So innovation, growth, scalability, culture, a lot of these things, we sideline towards HR. But I guess that's where we have to do a good job, wherein we have to ensure that the organization is in alignment to these thoughts, and HR is not the custodian of these things, right? Every single business leader is a custodian of culture, of innovation, accountability, ownership, etc., etc. So I believe this is where HR has to play a very, very active role, uh, not an enabler role. And I think we still are saying that HR is a support function and an enabler, but I think we are way beyond that. uh, we are actually a driver function. If you look at scale, the organization wouldn't have scaled had HR not stepped in and created growth for the organization, and 80% of the credit has actually gone to the teams and to the processes and systems that were being built. So I think it is time to be in the driver's seat. If we don't have the competence, we have to get that competence, right? We can't just rely on someone else to be able to give that seat. So create value for the organization, be disruptive uh, in mindset within HR and inside the organization. Uh, be someone who adds value in more than HR, right? Contribute to business wherever you can, and be a great problem solver, because that's something that I've seen. I try and solve problems of the organization, be it a business problem or a marketing problem, or let's say it's a people problem. So the role of HR, in one word, will be to be an enterprising leader, not a functional leader. So you got to think about the organization and less about the function.
Right. I think with HR, people think of it as very segregated, but
Yes,
it encompasses, I think, all aspects of
absolutely,
business.
absolutely.
Right. So, sir, could you walk us through the key challenges that you faced while, setting up a full-fledged learning and development function to enhance, both technical and the behavioral capabilities?
So I think more than the challenges, it is all about how do you go about solving for something. So it's very similar to any math problem or a physics problem that you're solving, right? You don't encounter challenges,
Right.
right? You just want to see how best do you solve that problem,
Absolutely.
and what does it solve. And I think that is very similar to how we solve things in startups. It does not always have to be challenge, because we are not solving for the challenge, we are solving for the context. Now if the organization is scaling and it's scaling very fast, right, you have scale the organization to about 10x. You want to deliver that sort of service to your customers because you want to penetrate into newer markets. How do you increase the go-to speed or the go-to market speed, right, in the organization? How do you increase the NPS, right, the customer NPS? A lot of these problems are there at hand. Now you have to identify what problems do we solve. So rather than challenges, you have to prioritize what problems should we be solving. Then you create a roadmap in terms of what problems do we solve, right? Then comes what will solve that problem, be it the processes, be it systems, be it people, let's say tools, etc., etc. So it's all about identifying what do you want to solve, create a use case or a business case around it, put up a team, resources, build processes and systems, start building metrics around it. At the same time, you have to create a culture wherein people can keep thinking of newer ideas, right? Because you want your team to also work with you on that. And the biggest thing which makes it a success or has made things successful is our ability to execute. And especially in a startup, if you are not able to execute, then the rest is gone. So 90% in a startup is all about execution, and 10% is your strategy or wishful thinking or aspiration, etc., etc. So the way you do execution in a startup determines everything.
So, so my last question to you is that I'm sure all of our IIM Raipur students are looking forward to this answer from you. That what advice would you offer MBA students, looking forward to build a successful career in HR leadership?
Okay, what advice should I give? So the first advice I want to give is don't think like an HR. And it's slightly a dichotomous statement that I've just made. But what I mean by this is you should be an HR professional, but to be able to solve things of the future and to be able to solve problems of the organization, you have to think beyond an HR professional, which is about thinking like a user, which is about thinking like an employee, which is about thinking like a leader, right? And this is where I believe a lot of HR professionals falters, because majority of the times they don the administrator or an HR hat and just think about being an HR professional.
Right.
So that's one advice, that while you are an HR professional, your thinking needs to consider the needs and requirements of everyone that you are serving. That's number one. Second advice is you should be a consultant. So you should act like a consultant, you should work like a consultant, you should acquire skills and knowledge like a consultant, and you should execute like a consultant, right? And I can go on and talk about what I learned in my consulting times. But I guess being a consultant adds quite a lot. And if an HR professional can be a good consultant, I think they have a very very bright future ahead. So these are my two
Mostly like,
top
a
picks.
holistic way of thinking is what you're.
It's actually a
Um,
combination of a lot of things.
right.
It's about having a holistic view, because you're not just thinking about a compartment. You're thinking about part of the entire chain, and you can think through, because you have had an exposure to those five
Yes.
things, right? So exposure, thinking holistically. Third is in terms of speed,
Right.
right? Four is being a speedy executor or a great executor, right? Fifth is to be able to kind of manage so many things at one go. You're traveling, you are problem solving, you are creating presentations, you are formatting stuff, you're also doing business development, etc., etc. So a consultant is all about being jack of all trades. So I think if you can acquire that skill as an HR professional, uh, I think you'll do well.
So with this, we come to the end of the interview. Thank you so
Sure.
much for joining us at IIM Raipur today. Your insights and experience have been truly valuable to us. And, we're truly honored to have the opportunity to learn from you. We're looking forward to meeting you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to IIM Raipur. And a
Thank,
fabulous time being
thank,
here. Yeah,
thank you so
thank
much.
you.